Get your kaiju figures at Big Bad Toy Store at the link in the description.
Dragon Ball, horror, kaiju, and more. Steven's Toy Reviews.
Well, hey there, collectors. It's going to be Steven here, and welcome to another SH Monster Arts review, where today we are going to be taking a look at another Heisei-era Godzilla figure in the SH Monster Arts lineup. Are you surprised? Because I'm not. Today we're going to be taking a look at the SH Monster Arts Godzilla 1991 Shinjuku Decisive Battle. We're just going to keep it short, sweet, and to the point and call it the Shinjuku suit. Why is that? In 1991, in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, there were effectively two different suits. One of them would be the Hokkaido suit, where he fought King Ghidorah proper, and the other one is where he fought Mecha King Ghidorah in the sort of finale of the movie. And the reason why they did this one is to go along with the Shinjuku Decisive Battle set, Mecha King Ghidorah, that they released a little earlier this year. So, if you did pick up that Mecha King Ghidorah, this is going to be the perfect companion piece, right? That is a stretch of a statement to say. Tamashii Nation's SH Monster Arts Heisei era, those three words go really, really well together. However, is this release going to live up with the rest of the line? No, but let's take a look to see whether or not it's going to be worth adding into your collection. So obviously I went ahead and I loaded the intro to this review, but when it comes to the sculpt and paint section, I really do want to preface this by saying that the figure is, well, it's not inherently bad, it's just not as good as it could be. And I do want to reference this by saying that this is not the Hokkaido suit, this is the Shinjuku suit. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the fandom, most people prefer the Hokkaido suit because that is obviously going to be the one where we have two of Toho's big five going at it. Everyone knows Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, not necessarily Mecha King Ghidorah, so whenever you look up pictures of the 91 suit, you're going to see the Hokkaido suit. That is one that X Plus has used many a time over for their products that they've made. This is what even the Boys Division even used for the recently released 91 movie Monster series. So they've done the Hokkaido suit. So why they went with the Shinjuku suit, I know I just said why. For their first 91 release, I'm not quite sure, but that's what they did. So the Shinjuku suit typically has puffier features than the Hokkaido suit, and that is somewhat translated well over to this figure. However, when you take a look at the sculpted details, which that's what we're going to start with, they seem to have rendered in 720p instead of 1080p compared to some of the other figures in the line. You're even going to see that when we do a side-by-side comparison with Biogoji. However, the most particular straining issue with this one is going to be the paint apps, and you've already taken a look at them. And the reason why I'm doing side-by-side side profile shots of this one is I know that there are going to be some issues that folks are going to have saying that it's just simply the lighting or the way that I framed it. No. Yeah, so this Godzilla definitely does have an issue with the gray dry brushing on the head, and that it's only pretty much just found on the head. It's kind of sort of found on the toes as well. However, on my particular unit, it's really only found on the right side of his head, right side of his face, and it is on the left as well, yes indeed. However, it's not as strong. And then we do have the eyes, which on mine, they look fine. However, if you take a look particularly at this sculpt of the figure, it does appear that the eyebrows are not really symmetrical. They're kind of off balance, which is okay. I mean, you know, nothing in nature is going to be symmetrical, but this does lend itself not only to the eyes looking weird on a lot of these units, but the way that the SH Monster Arts figures are made is that the upper jaw is actually inserted into the head sculpt, and that's where the eyes are printed. We're going to continue on looking at the figure as we give this explanation, and how the eyes are printed, that is where they get a little cattywampus. So this is how we get figures that have googly eyes on them. And unfortunately, if you have been following me on Twitter or X, whatever, which you should, I have been retweeting some of the pics that I've seen, and we do have the continuous eye issue that has plagued this line since the beginning. Another issue that I have had with this figure in particular is going to be that the claws do look fine, interestingly enough, on the left side of Godzilla. The right side don't really have the same shading. So that's interesting. Yeah. Overall, I would have to say that the figure, it doesn't necessarily look bad per se, but it's just not up to snuff with the rest of the line, including the previously released Biogoji. Interestingly enough, in an era where like the SH Figuarts line is looking to improve articulation, and we have wonders like the Final Wars Godzilla, this is very much so a regression in engineering for the SH MonsterArts line. I would say the most impressive thing is that this Godzilla can look straight up, which is really awesome. And the way that you're going to do that is you are going to rely on the ball joint that connects into the body here. That actually has a nice little bit of clearance with the dorsal plates that are at the bottom of the neck. So Godzilla really can rely on that, and he can look straight up. So as usual, we do have a system of ball joints in the neck, which that is where Godzilla is mostly going to rely on getting him to look in all sorts of different directions. So even though he has a little bit of a puffy neck, if you will, this Godzilla can look in all sorts of different directions, which is really, really nice. I am a very big fan of that. Future Steven here, a few days later. So if you are going to get Godzilla to look up, yes, you can do that. However, here's something that I caught. If you're going to do that, the sculpt is actually not going to appreciate you too much, at least when it comes to paint. So this little dingleberry here was still there. Keep in mind that if you're going to get Godzilla to look up, you're going to have the dorsal plates here, and those naturally, because of the ball joint, are going to want to rub up against this portion of the sculpt as well as down here. So just do keep that in mind, that you may have the neck here rub up against the neck here if you get Godzilla to look up straight. Just keep that in mind so you don't damage it. Go ahead on and finish up this section past Steven, or current Steven. You know what I mean. And additionally, we do have the mouth which opens and closes, and that's going to be on your traditional ball joint. So even if he does happen to go slack jaw, that's basically a non-issue, and you can fix that. So anytime you see pictures like that, take it with a grain of salt. It's not a big deal. If you watch my unboxing video, it's not a huge deal that it happened, but we do have a double axis or barbell style ball joint for the shoulders. So you see what we got there. So it does move and twist and turn, and Godzilla can really T-pose nicely. So that's pretty cool. Then we do have a dedicated bicep swivel, so this way we can spin Godzilla's arm around. However, given the construction of everything, do we realistically speaking need to get his arms to spin all the way around? Not particularly, but that is an option that we can have. We do have what is effectively a double elbow hinge. However, keep in mind that, well, Godzilla really isn't going to be doing too much in terms of battling, because he's not going to be a super Toku hero here, right? But we do get some nice range of movement there, especially when we have him down to the side, but it's going to effectively just be a 90-degree bend. So even though it may be a double joint here, it is what it is. Thankfully, though, we do have a little bit of a forearm swivel, which that's mostly going to be due to this joint system being ball joints, but hey. Wrists are going to be ball joints, so we can twist and turn and raise and lower his hands, and we can even rock from side to side, which is really cool. We do have the waist joint, which is going to be a ball joint, so we can twist and turn Godzilla around. Keep in mind the dorsal plate, so this way you're not going to be scraping anything, and it's really nice. You can bend down about that far, bend once you adjust it up that far, but do keep in mind that if you are going to do this, we do create a gap, and that is going to be an issue for some. The hips are absolutely atrocious. First and foremost, the left one for me, you can hear it being super tight. So when it comes to kicking out to the side, we have a regression essentially all the way back to the original SH MonsterArts release, and we have little to no range of movement here. I do understand, I did talk about this just up here in the arms, that this is going to be a Heisei era Godzilla, and he's not really going to be a tooth and claw kind of kaiju. However, this is something they could have easily prevented, and this is something that they did with the 1995 Birth version, where the range of movement for the legs was really solid. However, here, I mean, we can barely kick out to the side, and when it comes to kicking forward and back, it's okay, but I'm really pushing what we got going on here, and you can kind of do that, but it doesn't really feel satisfactory, and I do feel like I'm grinding the thigh up against the pelvis area, so that's not fun. I don't really like that idea. Plus, when we do have these little sleeves here to fix more gaps, once again, it does feel like those get into the way of the movement, and it doesn't really feel fluid. But once again, we do have those ball joints that are going to be in the hips, so we can get some sort of rotation out of them as well. As we know, for most Godzillas in the line, we do have double hinge knees, and where they connect into the thigh and to the bottom of the leg, it's going to be ball joints, so we can get a little bit of movement there. We do have ball joints at ankles, so Godzilla has really solid range of movement, including ankle rockers. And then to wrap everything up, we do have a ball jointed tail. Mine is a little bit loose, you can see there where it connects, but it is a solid range of movement there, all the way up to about that portion of the tip. That like to pop off. When I did the unboxing, it wasn't caught on camera, but there was a portion of the tail that did detach in the box. It was just actually sitting there together because I didn't touch it until after I pulled it out. But you can see we do have a great range of movement on the tail. I like it. It's pretty good. So in terms of articulation, we have a lot of neat stuff going on here for Godzilla, but unfortunately, we have some regression here, which isn't really all that great. Now, beyond that, we have no accessories. None. Nope. He doesn't do nothing. We don't get like, tongue kind of moves up and down a little bit, I guess. Anyway, yeah, we don't get any accessories. So that is what it is. We don't get like a sub or a building or anything like that for him. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there are accessory parts and stuff on the market, but nevertheless. All right, so a size comparison, so this way you can see exactly how big this Godzilla is. And honestly speaking, I am kind of surprised that he's not bigger. I mean, this is supposed to be 100-meter Godzilla, and compared to, as we will see side by side, with the 80-meter Biogoji, I was expecting this guy to be like 1-to-1 with 100 meters. But it does not appear to be the case. And I did want to include this section here since there were a lot of folks who were really debating as to whether or not this would be different from the 1989 SH MonsterArts. And as you can see with this side-by-side comparison, 100% different. Nothing is going to be reused. And as a matter of fact, a whole different paint scheme entirely. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. I'm going to summarize my review very briefly. In terms of looks, the figure looks fine, very close to the Shinjuku suit, but the paint application is going to be rather weird. We still have the wonky eye issue, and I don't know why they went with the dry brushing on the face. The articulation is definitely a regression compared to what we've seen as of recent, including with the Final Wars Godzilla, which was the same price and moved significantly better, and even the birth version that came out back in 2012, the 95 Sculpt did. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. And no accessories. They could have included some gravity beams for Mecha King Ghidorah, even if it would have been one silver, green, whatever color that he uses. When it comes to if you should purchase this at US distribution, it's going to be $100, and I'm going to put my foot down and say, no, you should not purchase this figure at that price point, even if you absolutely love the Shinjuku suit. This is not a $100 figure by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't understand where that price came from. If you are a diehard Shinjuku fan and you absolutely have to have an action figure representation of that suit to go along with your 1991 display, I would say I was able to secure mine for about $85. I would say for you to maybe wait for the same deal. See if you can get it for around that price. Now, what I would say, however, is that if this were to be offered at MSRP for $65 or so, that is a fantastic entry point for those who absolutely must have the Shinjuku suit, because again, it is the lesser of the two, generally speaking, in the fandom. And for those who are not necessarily a fan of the Shinjuku suit, hey, maybe you can wait for a deal for about $50, $55 or so dollars. I think that is a fantastic entry point. However, let's keep this in mind. In Japanese yen, which the following statement would have been true a few years ago, the current exchange rate at time of purchase is about 148 to 149 yen to 1 USD. And since this was about 9,000 yen at retail, it would have been about 65 bucks. So I don't know where they got $100 for US distribution. So perhaps that's something I will cover in another video. Yeah, so if you're not a fan of the Shinjuku suit, or if you are, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say at retail price, this is going to be a pass. Maybe get it at a deal, or you can wait for Tamashii Nations to do a Hokkaido suit in the SH MonsterArts line, or Haya just recently announced they're going to do an exquisite basic Hokkaido suit. Wait for that. That might be pretty good too. It's going to be about 50 or so. Half the price of this.